Okay, welcome everybody. We're going to kick off the official start of this webinar in just a minute here, but while we're waiting for that, let me remind you that you can ask questions at any point by typing your questions into your questions box on your GoToWebinar control panel, and I'll be looking at those. If you're having technical issues, I'll handle them right away. If it's questions for the group, I'll read them out to our presenters. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
Hi everyone, I'm Steve Leigh. I'm the president of the now AABA, and I want to welcome everyone to today's webinar. The goal of our webinar is to provide you with information on what we know about the meetings, how we're planning the meetings. We also want to hear your suggestions about how we might proceed with our planning. So this is an opportunity to share information, to respond to any questions you have, to take suggestions and advice that you may have as we go into the meetings. I can say firsthand that Denver is a phenomenal place to have meetings. So I'm very excited that we are meeting in Denver, which for me is just a little bit down the road from the University of Colorado Boulder. I think our meetings are especially important for our junior colleagues as well as students, both undergrad, graduate, across the range. They're very, very important events for moving our discipline forward and for taking advantage of the knowledge that we see each year at our meetings. We are planning an in-person meeting. Leslea Hlusko, our Vice President and Program Chair, will talk a little bit about the details of what we have in mind. Leslea has done an absolutely phenomenal job in the last couple of years in working with our meetings planning. We're also fortunate to have Lori Strong here from Burke and Associates. Lori is an indispensable resource in planning our meetings, working at every level of our meetings, from childcare through food, through negotiating with hotels, and so on and so forth. And so Lori can help us with additional details. As I mentioned, we are planning an in-person, and Leslea will cover that in more detail. We're also recognizing that we may have to be very, very flexible in going forward with our meetings. So with that, I'll turn it over to Leslea and let her talk a little bit about how our meetings planning is going.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you again. Here we are for round 2, or actually round 3 of pandemic association conferencing. So our 91st annual meeting is upcoming in 2022. We're going to have 2 components to this meeting. We are planning on an in-person component in Denver from March 23rd to March 26th. This is what we've planned for a long, starting many, many years ago, set this up. But now that we have the pandemic factoring into all of this, we are actually going to have 2 components to the 2022 annual meeting. We will also have a virtual component, which will be hosted on the Pathable platform, which if you participated last year, it's the same platform we used last year. And that will be the week following the in-person component of the meeting. So we are just in the initial planning phases for those for both of those components of the program, but I can give you a sense of sort of overall what's going to be in the annual meeting. We have 771 accepted abstracts for the program. These include abstracts for 12 invited symposia that will be hosted in Denver, and 1 invited symposium that will be exclusively on the Pathable platform. We have 9 workshop proposals, and I've been in contact with all of our sister organizations. So they are also participating, and we're figuring out the details of if they're going to have events in both of the components or just one, or exactly what that will look like. As you know, there's this pandemic, and so a lot of things are not yet settled because everybody's kind of waiting up until the last possible moment to make some decisions, so that they're making those decisions with the best available, most complete data available at the time. So COVID planning, we have given this a lot of thought, and we are seriously considering a vaccine requirement for participation in the Denver program. but we have not yet finalized this decision. When we have the Q&A part of this webinar towards the end, we would really appreciate feedback from the community about this idea. For the Denver program, where the COVID planning has the greatest impact, obviously, we will minimally require proof of negative COVID-19 test, a mask mandate, symptom checkers, biometric screening, contact tracing, social distancing, and space management. This means that depending on what's going on with the current state of the pandemic at the time, food may not be an option. Some of the larger attended events may not be an option. We may take the poster sessions and put them in bigger spaces and spread them out. We may have chairs farther apart. So expect that it will be different in many ways, but it will also be very similar to past in-person meetings as well. We will make all of these decisions guided by the public health orders and recommendations of the state of Colorado, as well as the county and the city of Denver. And that is the county of Denver. I got that right, Steve? Okay, good. So as I just said, the events in Denver may look different from our previous in-person conferences in order to keep everyone safe. That's our biggest goal, our main priority here. So that might be leading you to think like, yes, I want to come to the in-person component of the meeting, but I have a child, and is there going to be childcare? Yes, definitely. We are definitely doing something about childcare, but in terms of the details, we haven't yet made final decisions. We have a couple of options. So I would like to hand this over to Brett and Lori, because they can give you a sense of some of the childcare that's been planned for other conferences that they've organized, to give you a sense of some of our options.
I'll go ahead and start, and then Brett, you can jump in, okay?
Good, yep.
So we are the childcare company that we've worked with for quite a number of years with AABA now. We will use them if we end up doing in-person childcare, and we have, as BAI is our staff and our subcontractors, the providers that they'll be using will have to be fully vaccinated. They will be masked. We'll make sure that they will do extra cleaning of toys and all kinds of things like that, and make sure as much as possible to lower the risk if we do fully in person. We also have the option of doing grants towards helping with childcare, where we could provide, working with that same company, the providers that they use in the Denver area, getting that list together, being able to give that to you so you can contract with that childcare provider directly, so they can come to your room and watch your children or that kind of thing. And then AABA would do some grants to offset some of that. Or maybe you want to bring a family member to come and watch your child while you're in meetings, and then you could use that money to maybe offset their flight or that kind of thing. Brett, you want to jump in now?
Yeah, I think you actually covered it really well, and we're also open to other ideas that you might have. So if you have ideas, or if you have feelings about the multiple options that Lori was talking about there, please do type them into your questions box so we can get some feedback and talk about those. Go ahead.
Sorry, and we'll also, we will be sending out, we'll do a Google form to ask, to get some of your feedback of what you are thinking and that kind of thing, that we'll post on the AABA meeting page. And so that anybody, you can tell us what you think and what you'd like, or kind of where your head space is and about all of this. And it will be for only, those grants will be for only people that are coming in person with their children.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we can't provide childcare for everybody at home doing it virtually. I know that would have been a lifesaver last year for me. So I also will be sending out an email to everyone who checked the box when they submitted an abstract who said they were interested in learning more about childcare. So I will send out an email probably in early to middle January with more information to make sure that you see the Google form and the survey that we'll be sending out. But we'll make that available more broadly too, because I know it's more than just abstract submitters that are interested in that service. So contingency planning, we are also planning on a vibrant virtual program that will reflect the most successful parts of our 2020 online meeting. This is going to be augmented with events that also happen in Denver as well. So the Pathable platform will open when the Denver events open, and we will be live streaming parts of the Denver program. So the invited podium symposia, the annual AABA business meeting, and the president's plenary will all be live streamed. Unless something catastrophic happens to the internet, they will be available for those of you on the Pathable platform to be participating real time in at least that subset of some of our more prominent components of the program. The following week, after the Denver events, we will have smaller interactive contributed sessions, just like we did last year. We will also have an invited symposium that is unique to the online program, so you have to get on the Pathable platform if you want to hear about that one. We will also have social events and hopefully a handful of workshops that we're still in the planning stages for the virtual component. I think for those of you who can make this work with your schedules, participating in both Denver and the virtual program are going to really maximize the impact out of your meeting. And then that raises the question about, well, how much does it cost to actually go to this? Actually, the other reason another win for having the Pathable platform up and running and already a part of our planning is that platform will be ready to absorb the Denver program if we are forced to cancel the in-person part of the program. So if you are involved in the Denver program, on the remote chance that we have to cancel, the entire Denver program will just move online as planned, as if it were going to be in person. So it's going to be a really full 3 days online, but at least we know we can do it. We have it, thanks to Lori and Brett's expertise and all of their deep knowledge on all of this and experience, we can do this. So we have a backup plan, worst case scenario. So registering for the meeting, we are very, very aware that the financial impact of the pandemic is still very real for many people in our community. So we have continued to keep the price for the registration fees the same as for the 2019 meeting in Cleveland. The price for registration is the same whether or not you participate in one or both of the program components. So why not plan to engage in both, at least to some degree? And if you submitted an abstract, okay, if you submitted an abstract, this is really, really important. If there's only one thing you take away from this webinar, this right here is it. If you submitted an abstract, it is essential that you register through the individualized link that you were sent in your abstract acceptance email on December 8th, because that will take you to a field where you tell us if you want your contributed abstract to be in the online program, the in-person program, or both. And so the programming committee will then use your decision to plan out both components of the program. So if you contributed an abstract and you do not use that link, you will not have told us how you want to engage, and we will not plan you into this. So be sure to use your December 8th acceptance email, the abstract acceptance email. That's a mouthful. Okay, so I know that there's some confusion around those of you who may be in an invited symposium. If you are in an invited symposium, you are still in your invited symposium. That part of the program is set, even though the acceptance email was a little unclear about that one. For those of you in symposia, I apologize for that. So you will be in your invited symposium in the platform that was decided upon when that symposium was accepted. So if you did not submit an abstract, you can use the registration link on the annual meeting website, and it's right there too, if you want to jot that down quickly. But you can also just find it by visiting the AABA annual meeting primary web page. That brings us to timing, deadlines, and what is left to plan. Well, a lot. So January 1st, registration must be completed for those of you who submitted an abstract. Our meeting is early this year compared to normal years, so the programming committee is on it. So we start on Pulitzer Prize. So those of you who are interested, who are students and interested in hopefully getting some travel funds to help support your trip to Denver, the essays for that competition are due on January 3rd. The program committee is busy already before then, starting January 2nd, building the two-component program. My big thank you to our amazing program committee, by the way. If you meet any of them, please give a huge thank you. January 17th is the deadline for the Cobb Professional Development Awards. February 1st, the abstracts are due for the Undergraduate Research Symposium. February 15th is the deadline for submissions for the Student Presentation Awards, the Student Volunteer applications, and registering for the Free Child Care Program. And last but not least, March 13, events begin! And so with that, I know you have a lot of questions because there's a lot that still has not been completely settled, but we would love to have your questions, your feedback, what's on your mind, please share.
Yes, I'll remind you how to share because the group is being uncharacteristically quiet today. So just type your questions into your GoToWebinar control panel, and we will read them out and answer them, or if they're just comments, we'll appreciate that too. So type away. Well, here we go. This one's for, oh, and if you want your name not read, sorry, I should have said this earlier, just type anon or something like that at the beginning of your question and I won't read your name. So Melanie Beasley says, please require a vaccine. So here we go, one vote so far for requiring a vaccine. And if we want, we can talk a little bit about how we've done that with other conferences and how we've seen that work too. So thank you, Melanie. And Jamie Eulinger says, what should undergraduate students do about the undergraduate symposium? Should they wait to register as usual, and will it be during the in-person session?
That is a great question. So yes, thank you actually for bringing that up. I need to reach out to the organizer and get that ball rolling and decide what might be the best way to do that, because we have not yet decided on which platform. I think it worked really nicely virtually last year. Maybe we could do two. Yeah, we need to look into that. So thank you for the question, because I will use that as my motivation to make sure we have an answer for January when we have our next webinar.
Fantastic.
And we'll get information posted on the website too.
Great. So we have questions rolling in. The floodgates are open. This is good. So the next one is from Brigitte Holt, and it says, for invited poster symposia, could some participants Zoom in, like as in a hybrid format for poster symposia?
Yeah, I wish we could do that. The logistics of setting up the internet access for that much of an interactive event in person in Denver is, one, very complicated, and two, very expensive. So we're really focusing just on having one room that will be set up for live streaming events. And so the only things we can live stream, and that's really then a one-way street. We may be able to figure out how we can have comments posted and interaction that way, at least on Twitter, for example. But in terms of having poster sessions or contributed sessions in Denver that are very hybrid, it doesn't look good. Lori may be able to speak more to that.
Yeah, it is a cost issue, and as you would think with the kind of year we're in and the technology and everything else, that it wouldn't be crazy expensive, but it can cost to do, even run the one room that we're running and the other stuff that we're doing. It may cost as much as $30,000 just for the internet to have that one room going. So by the time you're multiplying that between all the session rooms we have, it's crazy expensive. It's very frustrating to all of us. It's ridiculously expensive. And that's across the country. So it's not Denver related. It's unfortunately, it's still an add-on, and at hotels and conference convention centers where it's a profit center for them.
And we're really looking at that for future contracts, to find facilities and places that are a bit more progressive, and recognizing that hybrid components to meetings are hopefully, I think, in many ways here to stay, because we're able to be much more inclusive that way. We have Brigitte and Erica both said, yes, please require a vaccine. So we got more votes for that. Let's see, Melanie Beasley says, also, when will the drop dead deadline be for making the decision for whether the in-person online meeting is a go or is canceled? I understand this is a difficult question. I think the answer is we're having an in-person meeting, and unless things really dramatically change, and so we've made the decision, right, to have the meeting in person. And something would have to dramatically change for that to be not the case. Did I get that right?
Yeah, in 2019, when we had to cancel, was that a month out? At what point did the hotel make that call?
So that
it was about a month out.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was.
And go ahead.
We had just gone into a state of emergency declaration, I think the day before we canceled. So when Brett refers to something pretty major, I'd expect we'd have to see something like that. The COVID situation in Colorado is not terrible. I know a couple states are having real big problems right now. The state has a pretty good vaccination rate. We hit 70% with at least one dose back during the summer. And as always, there are some people who are not getting vaccinated. We do have our share of those, but in general, we're doing okay, I would say. The state has been very responsive, and I would say simultaneously very reasonable in the kinds of suggestions, recommendations, and mandates that they've made throughout the pandemic. So all in all, we're probably in fairly good shape. Not like what we haven't really experienced what places like Florida experienced this summer, and so on. So fingers crossed, I guess, is the best thing to say. And as we know, this thing changes quickly, so we're aware of that. We're trying to get as much information as we can, and we will do everything possible to make sure that attendees are safe. And so, Lori, I'm sorry, I kind of trampled over on your comments there. Did you can add more as well?
No, I didn't have anything to add more than that. You covered exactly what I wanted to add.
And I think I'll just add that with the continuing, I mean, it's still early days, but the continuing information that Omicron looks like it is a milder version, and hopefully with the approval between now and the meeting of Pfizer and Merck's antivirals, we'll have just more and more things in the arsenal to deal with it. So hopefully, although I did hear someone the other day say that that the only thing you know about people who are sure about the future with COVID is that they're wrong. It doesn't matter what they're saying, they're just wrong if they're sure. Next one is from Caitlin Shrine, and it says, oh, sorry, let's see. It says, apologies if I missed it, but is there a registration deadline for those who did not submit an abstract? So what is the early registration? Yeah.
Yeah, so for the virtual program, oh, Lori, there is a date. Oh, why am I, do you have it up on your computer? I'm sorry. There is a date, and I'm going to fill some space while Lori fills it up. Yes, because we need to be able to plan. Yes. So we need a sense of numbers, especially for the Denver component. The virtual component can respond more readily because we can just, you know, call up the send an email to the company and say boost up our numbers and access to different Zoom rooms. But for the hotel, we need to have a good sense of how many people are showing up. So we do have a deadline, and it is, we don't know. So it's on the registration.
Circle back to that one.
Yeah, I'll find
it. I mean, in the past, we've had on-site registration. I think that's very reasonable to continue to do. However, yeah, it will really help us if we know how many people to expect. You have a date.
I have a date. Yay, February 28th. Is the pre-registration deadline, so that's the less expensive way to go. So if you can register after that, it just costs more.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't have that at the tip of my tongue. Thanks for saving me.
End of February.
And as I say, it's really important to register as soon as possible because that just helps us plan.
Tremendously.
We do have contracts with the hotels that stipulate how many room blocks we use. That kind of thing. The association is always a little bit at financial risk if we don't hit those markers. So the more we know in advance, the better off everyone will be.
Exactly. Our next one says, I submitted an abstract and it was accepted. However, I did not specify if it was a talk or a poster. Did I miss something, or will I be informed later after indicating my preference for participation?
Right. So after you register and indicate your the preferred venue or both, then the program committee, we have subcommittees around each of the key. We have 10 key terms that we organize our program around, and we have subcommittees of about 2 to 3 people for each of those key terms. They will take all of the contributed abstracts and create first the Denver program. So those sessions will be a little bit bigger than the online program, and people will give their presentations at the time. And then they will, the next week, they will sit down and create the virtual program based on those abstracts that were indicated that wanted to be part of the virtual contributed program. And those are going to be much smaller sessions because the focus at the Denver program is to give you an opportunity to give a presentation and to have an audience, or with posters to have, you know, multiple people around, hopefully, and sort of that engagement. But with the virtual contributed sessions, the goal is to have people who are giving presentations around a theme. About 6 people, maybe 7 people, give you a Zoom room and you will have a conversation. So it's really for networking in a different format and a bit more intensively than what you may experience in the Denver program. So they're really different aims about how they're designed. So we're building, the program committee is building the Denver one first, the virtual one second. I am really not sure exactly what this is going to look like because I obviously don't have a sense of how many people are going to be choosing one or the other or both. And so it could be unbelievably cool, to be honest, depending on how this all plays out. I think either way, it's going to be, whatever happens, it's going to be really nice, but I think it has potential to be really, really neat to do it this way.
Cool.
And then you will get an email and we'll tell you. Sorry.
Yeah, so we have a limited number of slots for spoken presentations for and so many more posters than oral presentations are presented at meetings. the program committee will make some decisions about abstracts that don't specify the format. Oh, I should add that we should be getting a schedule together by around the end of January, I think. Leslea, we're going to be meeting in Denver to take a look at the venue to try to make sure that we're assigning rooms properly to different sorts of events. Thinking about, again, some of our larger events such as the opening reception, closing reception might not look like they used to look. We are working with other organizations to find out what worked for them and what didn't work, and we'll continue to do that right up until we set the schedule for the meetings, again, probably around late January.
Oh, actually, I'd like to add one more little piece of information just to make sure everyone's clear. So the Denver program for contributed abstracts, those sessions will be organized around presentation style. There will be podium sessions and there will be poster sessions. For the virtual platform, the format of the presentation is irrelevant because it gets uploaded ahead of time. And so those sessions are organized solely around topic.
Excellent. So our next one is from Rachel Schatz, and it says, I would love to come in person, but I need to get permission to travel abroad for my university, which will not be available by the 31st. Are any delays in making this decision possible? And if this is not possible, would it be possible to present at the virtual conference and also attend the in-person conference as an attendee if I'm allowed to travel? Oh,
yes.
and she also says yes to the vaccine.
Great, this is great, this is really helpful. Yes, so like for example, I will be there in Denver in person, but I am presenting in the virtual program. So I think that is one nice way to sort of hedge your bets and also to maximize what you're getting out of this. We have flirted with the idea of perhaps having a session where people coming internationally could present in person in Denver. Kind of at the last minute. We will not be able to include those abstracts in the abstract volume or in the program, or well, if you've already had an abstract accepted and you're planning on doing it in the virtual program, I'll need to give some thought as to exactly how that might work. We're going to need to make this decision on the ground in January once we have a sense of how many people are going to be there and how we're going to set the venue up, because we might have the space to do this safely, but we might not. So I don't want to make promises I can't keep, but just a heads up, there might be an option.
That's great. The next one says, should people in invited symposia, should they then just select where they've already been placed when they're registering? Yeah.
Yes, please. Yes, please. And I've asked the organizers of those invited symposia to reach out to everyone just to remind you of which one it was. But basically, all but one of the symposia are for Denver. And so if you're in the integumentary anthropology session, you're online. And if you're in any other one, you're in Denver.
The next one is from Carolyn Orban, and it's a comment. But it's actually a question. So here it says, if you are planning childcare in a group setting, can you share how much time can be spent outside? When making decisions about returning my kids to daycare, time outside was an important factor, but I don't know the weather in Denver in March, so maybe this isn't feasible. So generally speaking, the company that we use, I don't think they do outside stuff, and some of that has to do with liability, I think, and some of it has to do with just how the facilities are set up. And March in Denver, Steve can certainly answer better than me, but my experience of marches in Denver is that it is always never the same. So it can be it can be snowing very, very hard, or it can be sunny and 75 degrees, and you just don't know. And that might be 2 days consecutive, frankly.
Yes, the temperature extremes, I've looked into this and I do know firsthand that the weather in Denver is not at all predictable. In fact, it's some of the least predictable weather in the country, which isn't all that bad. The high in March, I think record high was 84, the record low was -12 Fahrenheit. So
So it'll be in there somewhere.
It'll be somewhere in there.
Likely.
But we do often have pretty good days in March, and so while I don't know that the childcare would be feasible outside, you know, it's possible we could arrange some outdoor events if the weather holds up. And if it doesn't, you'll find that lots of people are still outside in the snow, eating and drinking anyway, pandemic or not. The pretty hardy residents of Boulder and Denver.
For sure. It looks like an REI convention outside anywhere you go in Denver. So Melanie Beasley says, sorry if I missed this, but will events and the sessions require masks to be worn?
Yes.
I would say unless something changes dramatically, and it would probably be reasonable that a speaker would not have to wear a mask. I think that's something that our other organizations have done. And again, talking with other organizations, we probably will follow their lead on a number of these. So if you've been to primatology meetings recently in Oklahoma, it sounds like we're going to be doing many of the same things that they did.
Yeah. Next question says, what could be fully vaccinated for international participants? Will the opportunity to get vaccinated for international participants be possible, and time needed for those? Questions about what to do with international participants, and I can start answering that a little bit from some experiences that we've had with other meetings, and that is so the WHO, the CDC recognizes the WHO, what the WHO recognizes as far as vaccines go, and most of them are covered. The ones coming from Russia generally are not on the list, and a few of the ones from Asia. But generally speaking, the CDC and WHO have recognized all of the vaccines. And what many organizations, I know this isn't a decision that's been made yet, but what many organizations are doing is saying, look, if you've been vaccinated, but your vaccine isn't on the WHO, the WHO list, then you have to have a test within 72 hours before the event or something like that. And so I know that those decisions are still being made, but that's how many organizations are handling it. So I hope that helps. I don't know, Steve and Leslea, if you have more to add to that one. Nope. Okay. The next one is from Leslie Grigorica. It says, what are the expectations for those of us wanting to present virtually? I ask because the virtual dates overlap with the SAAs. And so while I'd love to have my poster included in the virtual platform for others to access, I'm unsure whether I would be able to attend a scheduled online poster session. Can we upload the poster online even if we cannot attend a live session?
Yes, and the question I appreciate because it raises another issue as well. Anyone who is presenting in Denver is also invited to upload their presentation to the virtual platform. They will not be organized into a session with a live event, but they will have that opportunity to make their presentation available. So if you are planning to present only online, we will schedule you to be a part of a live event, and hopefully you can make it, but it's not required. I think we had a couple people last year who ended up not being able to make their live event, and they're large enough that they can absorb if one person needs to not be there for, you know, whatever reason. Things happen, right?
So things definitely happen. Sorry, you tripped me up with that one. Yes.
Oh, also, I should point out that for the virtual presenters, that we do need to have those presentations uploaded probably 4 weeks ahead of time, which is what we did for last year, because everything gets hand checked. And so as you're thinking about what you're going to present and, you know, which format you might prefer or both, do keep in mind that for the virtual format, we do need things uploaded ahead of time at about a month.
Okay. Tisa Lowen says, for following the link for abstracts, is that just for the first author? What does agreeing to participate in both mean? And does that mean live ability in both? And will the live conference info be unpathable for people to see? So several questions in there.
Yes. Okay, but the very first one was.
The very first one was, does only the first author follow the link
Yes.
for
Thank you.
registration from the abstract? Yeah.
Yeah, basically the first author, the corresponding author, is the one who needs to make the decision for that presentation. And everybody else is clearly on the abstract, but if you didn't actually hit submit and you're not getting emails from the abstract database system, you're not you didn't submit the abstract. So just the person who's actually submitted the abstract is the only one I need to have register to make that decision, in person, virtual, or both. So what that does mean if you click both is that the program committee will put you into a session, a poster or a podium session in Denver, and they will also put you into one of the smaller tailored virtual sessions the following week. And a month ahead of time, you will upload your presentation to the Pathable platform.
Perfect.
And as far as registration is concerned, what this means is that other authors need to just go directly to the biological anthropology website and register there, the link that Leslea showed in her slide. Anyone not presenting should also go to that link to complete their registration.
Okay. Okay, this next one says, I have some questions.
So wait, there's a little more to the question that we didn't maybe get to towards the end of the previous question.
Yep, was live availability in both implied in that? And then the last part was, will the live conference info be unpathable for people to see?
Yes. Well, except for the Denver events won't be, unless you're in an invited symposium podium session.
Right.
Hold on for just a second.
Oh, yeah.
So the live events, I was taking that a different way. So let me just add my piece along with that.
Okay.
So the Denver events will be available in an app through Pathable. You won't see the sessions through the app, but all of the Denver events will be in the app. So you'll know your schedule. You can send messages to other people and all of that kind of stuff.
They won't be streamed through the app, but they will
Correct.
be noted and scheduled through the app. Yes.
Exactly.
And they will be streamed, so they can be viewed in real time. This includes the invited symposia, the business meeting, and the presidential panel. So if you're not able to attend the meeting, you can watch those events as they go forward.
Excellent. Okay, this next one says, I have some questions, and it's apparent that they have some questions that might be longer, and so they've asked what email address to send the questions to. This is good information for folks. And so, Lori, I think they're going to be more for our office than they are going to be just based on the nature of these. And so maybe we can give the email address we want to use for that after I ask the questions that they did put here. An example of the kinds of questions, may I decide before, or I can decide before the 31st of December how I want to engage in the meeting, but I can't pay the registration at the moment. My department has closed all payments until mid-January. And so, yeah, I will say that we often have to deal with situations like this. And so please do reach out to us. And I can say this because Amy was the one that's going to have to deal with it, and she's on a plane right now, so she's not watching. So Amy would be happy to help you with these sorts of problems. She can't yell at me because she's on a plane.
Amy seems happy
Lori,
to help with everything.
She is. She's super friendly and nice and helpful. What address should they use for that, Lori? Yep, you're on mute, I think.
Yep. My address. So why don't we, Brett, put that in the chat for everybody, and then that way I can work with Leslea, or I can work with Amy or whoever to get the right communications through.
Hey Brett, if you could take away my my screen share, I can make a slide that has the email addresses on it. I forgot to do that. And then
Okay,
I'll share
let me,
it.
great. So I've just put it in the chat. I'm going to take away your screen share. Let's see. Okay, and we can keep going while you do that part. And I also put Lori's email address in the chat that went to everybody's system there. Okay, so Nicole Grunstra says, so if one can participate both in the Denver program and in the virtual component, does that also apply to invited symposia? Specifically, if I cannot attend in person, but one of my co-authors can, and they can present our presentation, I can still present it in the virtual component. Sorry if I misunderstood.
No, I wish I could make that happen, but because that's part of an invited symposium, we're not going to run the invited symposia twice. So it will only run in the Denver session, unless you're in the integumentary anthropology, which will then only run in the virtual component. I love that idea, though. I wish I could make that happen.
This one from Rachel Schatz says, if I present in the virtual event, do I have to register separately for the in-person event as a regular attendee not presenting?
Okay, I'm sorry. Could you ask again? I'm trying to type at the same time.
Yep.
Email addresses. So.
I'll even stall for a second so you can finish.
Okay, stall for a second while I finish this, and that'll make everybody.
No problem.
Okay. And while you're stalling, I will say, so registration is the same price for either virtual or in person. So you register once, you can attend both parts. You can attend in person or you can attend virtual. If you're only doing virtual, but if you're an in-person attendee, you can still participate in all the virtual stuff that's happening after the meeting.
Yeah. So that really answers the question, which was, if I present in the virtual event, do I have to register separately for the, if I present in the virtual event, do I have to register separately for the in-person event as a regular attendee not presenting? And it sounds like the answer is no, you register for the meeting, whichever, and you can participate in both. Okay. Let's see, we have a couple more comments, we have several thank yous, by the way. I'm not gonna read all those out.
You're welcome. All right.
Would you like to share again, Leslea?
Yes, I can share again now.
All right, I'm making you presenter. It should prompt you now.
All right, can everyone see that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah.
Oh, so the question that we stalled on, it got answered?
It did.
Okay.
Lori stalled and answered it for you.
Yes.
And
good teamwork.
Don't be terribly, speaking of teamwork, don't be terribly concerned if you get the wrong, if you're not sure if your question is program or administrative, because the two of them communicate all the time and we'll handle it together either way. So don't stress out about that. The next question is from Sean Hurst. It says, so if we are presenting at both Denver and the virtual program, will our live presentation be streamed, but do we also need something recorded beforehand for the virtual component a month ahead of time? I can reread if you'd like.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So if you decide you want to do both components a month before the conference starts on March 23rd, you'll need to have uploaded your presentation so that we can do all of the back end work that has to happen on the Pathable platform to make the virtual component work. And then you will go to Denver and hang out with all of your colleagues. It'll be great. You'll give your presentation live. You'll get feedback live. And then you'll go home and then you'll have your live event, which is based around a conversation around all of the previously uploaded presentations. The bonus here is that if you are giving a podium presentation and for some reason you end up not being able to make it to Denver, you already got your presentation together and somebody can give it for you in your session.
Right. Okay. I think this next one is, oh, sorry, Steve, did you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I think the question also asks a little bit about streaming. The only presentations that will be streamed in Denver are the invited podium symposia, and as I mentioned, presidential panel and business meeting as well. Again, given the constraints that Laurie mentioned on costs.
Yeah, we basically can set up certain rooms, but not all the rooms, and so we're trying to coordinate which things go in those rooms that have internet tied into them.
Yeah.
Okay, this next one I think is a misunderstanding, so we can clarify this one. It says, okay, sorry, someone mentioned that in Denver there might not be enough space if the international people were included. What does that mean? And I think this was actually coming from your comment, Leslea, about having a last minute session for international folks. So maybe you can clarify that.
Right, we will have plenty of space for the program. Absolutely no problem. We're not even remotely concerned about having enough space to have the program as people are usually are familiar with it, where we have poster sessions, we have podium sessions, we have our invited symposia sessions, we have different meetings going on, we have the workshops that happen. All of that's going to happen, absolutely no problem. We want international people to come. We recognize that this year, because of the problems with traveling through the United States government, had restricted travel for a while, and now that that's opening up, people also have issues with getting access to the funding or actually just making the reservations. So we know that there are people coming internationally who may not have submitted an abstract because they weren't sure they could make it, or who, you know, that kind of situation. So we had this wild and crazy idea that maybe we could have one room where people could do these last minute, Brett, I like your term for that, these last minute presentations inserted into the program. So they wouldn't actually be in the formal program, they wouldn't be published in the abstract volume, but they would happen live in Denver. The thing is, I don't know if we have space for that kind of event, because that's really different and it's an add-on to what we have always planned on doing at the meetings. So depending on how many sessions we're going to run in Denver, based on how many people sign up to present in Denver, we may have an extra room, and then we could do an event like that. But it's not, but we want international people to come. Please come. I'm going to be there. I'm coming internationally. So we want you there.
And it's relatively easy to add space if we need it. So if we know a little bit in advance that we need some space, we can handle that. And as I mentioned, we're going to be on site in January, taking a look at the venue, making sure that we're using it wisely and to suit the requests that we have.
Got it. That was our last question.
Oh my gosh, and look at the time. We're so perfect.
Sort of perfect timing. We're going to give everybody 5 minutes back of their day. They can actually stretch before their next meeting, right?
Yeah, I'm going to make it to that qualifying exam I got to go to.
A little self-care, right? For 5 minutes.
5 minutes of self-care, everybody.
It adds up. Well, this was really great. I hope we answered all the questions that people who will get to watch this later may have as well. But if not, please visit our website. I have an FAQ up and running, and I will add a couple of these questions into that FAQ that aren't already answered. And I'll try to post some new pages with new updated information. And other than that, I'll hand it over to Steve.
Yes, thank you so much, Leslea, for everything you've done. Brett, Laurie as well, thank you so much. We will probably be having another webinar, I think in February. What did we decide? February, right? Or January? Probably
actually, I think
January.
It was right around the cusp of those two.
Yes, early February.
So
stay tuned.
Be alert for another webinar. Again, we're just going to try to make the best decisions that we can in light of what we know, and we'll know, I think, a little bit more by that point as well. Otherwise, thank you so much, everyone, and I'm not going to eat any more into the 5 minutes that now remain.
Take care, everybody. Thank you very much.
See you at AABA 2022. Bye.
Happy holidays.
Bye. Happy holidays.